I want to start today's episode off with a story about one of my clients, and I'm not going to share the name of her business because if you're following her or if you're one of her clients, you already know. But what I do want to share and what's really important is what happens because every CEO who has a team definitely needs to hear this. Roughly about 2 weeks ago, my client was in a car accident and it was no simple fender bender. It was a real accident. And what's so crazy about this accident is that I was actually on the phone with her and we were discussing business and how things were going, and the accident happened. Imagine being on the phone with your client. They get in an accident while you're on the phone, you hear them scream, and then the phone goes dead. The injuries were so bad that she couldn't walk. She had to get surgery. And when it comes to her business, she couldn't get back to her kitchen. She could barely go to the bathroom on her own. It was a whole ordeal. The big part about this is while she was laying in that hospital bed, her team was able to run an in-person event, make sales, also reach out to every current customer to let them know that there might be a delay and to ask them for grace, and they did it all without her. Welcome to More Than a Brand, the podcast for growth stage service business CEOs who are tired of watching clients they've already earned quietly walk out the back door while they keep spending money to bring new ones in the front. I'm Lindsay Tramel-Jones, the CEO of Fiercify Consulting. I'm a client relationship strategist and an Army veteran. This show is about the one thing most business advice skips entirely: the relationship your team builds with clients every single day. This isn't about marketing. It is about the relationship. You've done the hard part. Let's make sure your team can sustain what you built. This is More Than a Brand. Let's get into it. All right. Okay, let's jump into this episode. I know that y'all are tired of me beating this dead horse, but I am always going to beat it, okay? And it's because I don't think it's sad enough. But when you're building your business, when you're in that building phase and you're building your service business or whatever kind, even if it's a product, you are building it around yourself. That's your values, your standards, your relationship, and the way you would handle a difficult client conversation or a follow-up or an event. It is built around you. And 90% of the time, you are not writing it down because it's instinctive to you and you didn't need to. Because you built that business around you, it lived in you and in your instincts and your habits in any way that you showed up. And for a long time, that was enough because you were the business. Now let's fast forward to the part that everybody wants to do, and that is grow. When you grew in your business, you started hiring, maybe that was interns, employees, contractors, whatever that looked like for you. You built a team. And what most CEOs assume at that point, they assume their team will be able to figure it out because they write SOPs, they hire people to work in their zone of genius. They walk them through the onboarding and they introduce them to clients. But then when they step back, and they hope what they built personally will somehow transfer to the people they hire. Sometimes it does, but more often it translates, not transfers. As you already know, if you listen to the last episode, the first person you hired absorbed your standard by being in the room with you because that's your ride or die, that's your OG. The next person got the 80% of the version filtered through someone who had already been translated once. It's like making a copy of a copy of a copy. I may be showing my age, but the more you make a copy of that mixtape that you made back in the 80s, 90s, the worse the quality got. Right now in your business, you do not have one team delivering one standard. You have as many versions of your standard, no matter how bad or watered down it is, and it starts creating problems inside your business. Now, let's go back to my client and the accident. What I want to do now is walk you through what her team actually did because the details mattered. So yes, she was in this horrible accident. And when the accident happened, she couldn't communicate the way she normally would. Like she was going through surgeries, pain, multiple breaks. She was managing her own recovery. She was not in the position to be the CEO of anything because she was focused on her family and her health as she should be. Her team had a pre-scheduled in-person event, and most small teams in that situation would have called to cancel. They probably would have sent some vague message and hoped the clients would understand. or they would have waited for the CEO to tell them what to do. But her team did none of that. They ran the event, they showed up, they set up, they executed, and they presented the brand the way the brand demands to be represented, with warmth, professionalism, the down to earth vibe that her business has, and the level of care that her clients expect every single time they interact with her brand and her business. This wasn't because they had some kind of script for this scenario. It is simply because they understood what the business stood for, and they knew that the mission did not pause because the CEO was not in the room. Here's the part that I want to sit with for a moment. They also communicated with her current customers. They reached out proactively to let them know that there might be a delay in processing orders. They didn't wait for the clients to notice something was off or try to hide the situation. They got transparent so that people did not wonder. They were honest and they asked for grace, because as entrepreneurs and as small business owners, grace and being transparent will help you build stronger relationships. When they reached out to the clients, they also did it in the voice of the brand, not their own voice, not the way they think it should be done. They were trained, and the voice of the brand was ingrained in their minds and how they do business, that it felt seamless to the customers and it made sense. That is a relationship standard. It's not an SOP, it's not a process. It is a standard that is woven throughout your business so that when your team has to step up when the CEO leaves the room, things stay the same. And those things are able to stay the same because there's a shared understanding of what this business is committed to delivering to every client in every situation, including the ones that were never in the onboarding document. Before we keep going, I want to take 30 seconds to talk about something. If you are a growth stage service business CEO with a team of 3 or more people and clients are coming in but consistently not coming back, I want you to hear this. 68% of clients leave not because of price, not because of competitor, but because they felt unappreciated. That is not a marketing problem. That is a relationship problem, and it almost always lives in how your team shows up when you are not in the room. FlowTribe is the engagement I built to fix that. 2 weeks, 4 lessons, your whole team. We diagnose exactly where the relationship is breaking down using your FlowLab data, and then we train the team to build a standard that holds without you holding it together. If that sounds like something you've been looking for, go apply at fierceified.agency. I review all the applications personally, and I can't wait to see you in FlowTribe. All right, back to the episode. My client did not build that standard by accident. She built it intentionally. She built it with her team, not for her team. And when the moment came that required the team to carry on without her, they did. So what made it possible for her team to execute at that level without her? I want to give you a real answer and not a vague one. It wasn't an SOP. Please definitely tell your team what to do, but they do not tell your team what the client is supposed to experience. It was not the onboarding. Onboarding tells your team how the business works. It does not tell your team what great looks like in the moments that were never in the onboarding document. It was not supervision because she was in a hospital bed and there was no supervision. What made it possible was this: her team understood the mission. Or, in other words, they understood the assignment. They understood the assignment because it was a lived, shared, agreed upon understanding of what this business is committed to and what the client is supposed to feel at every stage of their experience. They knew what the brand demanded because they had been a part of building what the brand demanded. They were not executing someone else's standard. They were executing their own, one that they had helped define, had committed to, and had practiced enough that it lived in them the way that it lived in their CEO. And that's the difference between a team that needs the CEO in the room and a team that carries the mission when the CEO cannot be there. Now, I feel like I'm preaching, but This is very important. I want you to understand this does not happen on accident. It doesn't just happen because you hire the right people for the job you wanted them to do, or that your values are written on the back of your business card. It happens because you built the standard together in the same room, and every person on your team owns a specific piece of it that they take onus of, and they understand the implications, and they stand behind 10 toes down what your brand delivers and how to ensure that your customers feel like they are valued. I always have to leave you with one question. If something happened to you tomorrow, and I'm not talking about a planned vacation, long weekend, or some conference where you are just unreachable, like something real that put you completely out of pocket for a week or more, would your team know what to do? And I'm not saying, is it just going to be operationally ready or the task just still going to get done? But would they know how to show up for your clients in a way that your brand demands if you could not show up for your clients? Would they know how to represent the business in a way that makes your client feel like nothing has changed, even though everything has changed because you're not in the room? The honest answer is yes. You have built something businesses rarely ever build. You have a team that carries on the mission, that understands the assignment. But if that answer is no, or even maybe, it's not a failure. That's the most common situation in every growing service business I've ever walked into. And fortunately for you, it is fixable. Now, it ain't fixable by just hoping the right people figure it out or writing a better SOP. It is fixable by building a standard together in the same room so that every person on your team knows exactly what they own and exactly what great looks like in their role and exactly what this business is committed to delivering to every client. And that is exactly what we do with FlowTribe. So I know you're probably thinking, oh, what happened to the client? She's currently still recovering. She sent the message that she is ready to start working, not standing, but administratively working, and back to running and growing it and making it to everything she built it to be. What I've seen from her is that she is so grateful and so appreciative to the fact that her team was able to survive without her. Not once during that week in the hospital did she lie in a bed and wonder whether her business was okay. She knew her team, she knew her standard, and she knew what they had built together was so strong, and it was strong enough to hold even when she could not. And that is the goal. The goal isn't just that the business grows, it's that it holds your clients and your customers in a way that they always feel appreciated, always feel valued. That's all I have for you this episode. Share it with the CEO who is building a team and wondering whether the business would survive if he or she had to step away. Thank you for listening. Remember, your business is more than a brand, and your customers deserve to believe that too. See you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Remember, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date. Find us on social media at fiercified.agency on Instagram, or find us on Facebook at Fiercified Creative and Consultant.